Broncos Country. Today, we've got two stories. And I'm telling you right now, both of them deserve our attention for completely different reasons. The first one is something nobody expected. We're talking about a sudden change that directly affected Broncos fans at training camp, and it happened right as we're getting down to the final days of camp. It's frustrating. The timing couldn't be worse, and there's still a pretty important question about what happens next. But the second story is the one I really want you guys paying attention to, because we finally got the development we've been waiting for, involving a huge piece of this Broncos offense. On the surface, this is absolutely good news. I was relieved when I saw it. But after what happened to this team last season, there's also a warning here that Denver simply cannot afford to ignore. Because if they handle this the wrong way, something we're celebrating today could become a much bigger problem once the regular season starts. So, yeah, we've got two Broncos stories to get into today, and there's a lot to talk about. And before we get into that first one, if you're excited about where this Broncos team is headed, hit that like button for me. I'm Andrew, and this channel is still new, so we're building this Broncos community together from the ground up. Our first goal is 1,000 subscribers, but I only want you subscribing if you're a real Broncos fan and you want to be able to say you were here from the beginning. If that's you, subscribe, join us, and let's talk some Broncos football. So let's start with that first story, because this was a rough surprise for Broncos fans who had plans to spend Monday morning watching this team work. The Denver Broncos announced on Monday, August 17th, that their scheduled training camp practice at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, was suddenly being closed to the public. And the important thing here is that this had absolutely nothing to do with football operations. Practice itself was not canceled. The players were still able to work. This was about fan safety after storms over the weekend damaged the bleachers being used for spectators. The Broncos announced that the damage made those bleachers unsafe. And because that temporary seating area was where fans were supposed to watch practice, the team couldn't safely allow people inside. And look, you can understand the decision while still feeling disappointed for those fans. If there's any question about whether those bleachers are safe, you don't take that chance, period. Football is supposed to be something we enjoy. Nobody needs somebody getting hurt because the team tried to force an open practice when the seating wasn't safe. But man, the timing really stinks. Because Monday wasn't just another random day in a long training camp schedule. Denver is almost finished with the public portion of camp. And when this decision was announced, there were only 3 open practices remaining. So imagine being one of those fans who had a ticket, had been looking forward to getting out there, maybe wanted to watch Bo Nix and this offense up close, and then you find out that morning you can't attend. That hurts. And there's another reason this situation was especially complicated this year. When Denver originally announced its 2026 training camp schedule back in June, construction on the team's new training facility meant attendance had to be limited to approximately 1,000 fans for each open practice. The Broncos created temporary shaded bleacher seating on the north end of the practice fields, specifically as the fan viewing area. They scheduled 14 free practices open to the public between July 31st and August 19th. Even though admission was complimentary, fans still needed tickets, and each fan was limited to reserving seats for no more than 2 practices. So once those temporary bleachers were damaged, Denver really didn't have its planned safe viewing area anymore. And as of that announcement, the Broncos had not explained exactly how extensive the damage was or whether repairs would be completed before the remaining public practices. That's the part fans immediately had to start watching. According to Denver's official training camp schedule, the next 2 public practices were scheduled for Tuesday, August 18th, and Wednesday, August 19th, both beginning at 10 in the morning Mountain Time. The Broncos also reminded everybody that training camp dates and times are subject to change, and after what happened Monday, obviously you want to double-check before making plans. The team also directed fans to check for possible ticket availability for those remaining practices. Now, officially, the complimentary tickets had been listed as sold out, but there is still a possibility for some fans because anybody who can no longer attend can return their tickets. And those returned tickets are automatically made available again through Ticketmaster for somebody else to claim. So for fans who lost their opportunity Monday, there was at least a chance of getting another shot before the public portion of camp ends. The biggest unknown coming out of Monday was whether those damaged bleachers would cause additional problems for Tuesday or Wednesday. At the time of the update, Denver had not announced that either of those remaining sessions would be affected, and hopefully this ends up being nothing more than an unfortunate inconvenience. But now, we need to get into the second story, because this one actually affects what happens on the field. In Broncos country, we finally got some really encouraging news about Jalen Waddle. Waddle returned to Broncos practice after being out since August 5th because of what was described as muscle tightness. That's 12 days away from practice. And seeing Jalen Waddle back out there is a big deal. This is one of the players Denver brought in because they believe he can change the ceiling of this offense. You put that kind of speed and explosiveness into Sean Payton's offense with Bo Nix at quarterback, and you can understand why people have been dying to see what this thing looks like when everybody is healthy. So yes, I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. Because we've seen this movie before, and I absolutely do not want the sequel. I'm talking about Dre Greenlaw. Now, Waddle's situation and Greenlaw's situation are not identical. That needs to be made very clear. We shouldn't pretend every injury follows the same path, but there is an uncomfortable similarity in what these guys represented to the Broncos. Last year, Greenlaw was supposed to be one of those missing pieces for the Denver defense. This year, Waddle has that kind of expectation surrounding him on offense. And unfortunately, Denver never really got the full Dre Greenlaw experience it thought it was getting. Greenlaw was limited to just 10 total games with the Broncos, 8 in the regular season and 2 in the playoffs. Denver ultimately decided to move on after the season. His problems actually began before the season even started. Greenlaw suffered a quad injury while working out during the offseason. He eventually returned during training camp, tweaked that injury, and then had to miss time at the beginning of the regular season. That is exactly the type of chain reaction Denver has to prevent with Jalen Waddle. Don't rush him back because everybody wants to see the shiny new weapon. Don't turn 12 days into something that follows him for 12 weeks. If Waddle needs a little more time, give him the time. Because this isn't only about getting healthy enough to physically step onto the field. Missing practice can affect everything. We saw that with Greenlaw. Even when Dre eventually returned, his impact was inconsistent. And all that missed preparation time hurt his ability to get completely comfortable within Denver's defense. At his exit interview after the season, Greenlaw talked about how difficult learning the defense had been and compared the experience to seeing Spanish. And remember when everybody was wondering why Justin Sternad was still splitting time with Greenlaw? A lot of us naturally assumed it was because Denver was trying to manage Greenlaw physically. But that wasn't the whole story. His knowledge of the scheme was part of the issue. That's why these training camp reps matter so much. Jalen Waddle isn't just learning where to line up. He's building timing with Bo Nix. He's learning the details of Sean Payton's offense. He's developing chemistry, understanding adjustments, getting comfortable with what Nix expects when a play breaks down, and learning how all the pieces around him operate. You can't completely recreate those reps in a meeting room. And Sean Payton has already acknowledged that Denver has been dealing with too many soft tissue problems during camp. Payton specifically talked about the Broncos needing to get a handle on the soft tissue injuries, mentioning strains, hamstrings, and groins as things the team had been fighting through. And that came on August 10th, the same day J.K. Dobbins left practice with an injury. Denver even stretched after practice that day, in addition to stretching beforehand. And Payton explained that the additional post-practice stretching was directly connected to the soft tissue issues the team had been seeing. So this is clearly on their radar. And overall, I think you have to give Denver credit. This staff has generally done a strong job of keeping players available and managing prevention and recovery. But injuries still became a huge part of the Broncos' story last season. They lost J.K. Dobbins, and the running game suffered badly afterward. They lost Bo Nix at the end of that AFC divisional round victory. They spent much of the season without Dre Greenlaw. Those are not small losses. So when you're looking at Jalen Waddle returning from muscle tightness, you can understand why Broncos fans can be excited and cautious at the same time. Getting him back 12 days after he initially left practice is encouraging. But being back at practice is only step one. Now we have to see how his body responds. Can he practice consistently? Can he get through a full week without another setback? Can Denver gradually increase his workload without pushing him too quickly? And then comes the really interesting question. Do we see Jalen Waddle on Friday against the Green Bay Packers? If Waddle is able to practice fully throughout the week, there is at least a possibility that he plays. And that could make Friday a lot more interesting. because we could potentially see Waddle's Broncos debut happen alongside Bo Nix's preseason debut. Come on, Broncos Country. You know everybody wants to see that. Even if it's only a handful of snaps, just getting that first look at Nix and Waddle together would have people fired up. But I also don't need Sean Payton proving anything to us in August. If the medical staff believes Waddle is ready, great. Give him some controlled work. Let him feel NFL game speed again. Start developing that connection with Nix and get him out of there. But if there's any hesitation whatsoever, sit him. Because look at what Denver has waiting at the beginning of the regular season. A 6-game gauntlet. That is where we need Jalen Waddle. Not for a preseason headline. Not because we're impatient. Not because everybody wants to see the new offense immediately. We need this dude healthy when the games actually count. And when you put both of today's stories together, they're obviously very different situations, but both are reminders of just how quickly things can change this time of year. One weekend of storms can suddenly take away one of the final opportunities fans have to watch training camp. One case of muscle tightness can suddenly have everybody wondering about the health of one of the most important additions to the offense. That's August in the NFL, and for me, the Jalen Waddle situation is pretty simple. I'm encouraged, I'm excited, but I'm not ready to exhale completely. We learned too much from what happened with Dre Greenlaw last season. Denver brought Waddle here to help Bo Nix and Sean Payton take this offense somewhere different. He has the talent and explosiveness to become a massive part of what the Broncos want to do. But none of that matters if he isn't healthy. So protect him now, build him up the right way, get those practice reps when his body is ready, and make sure Jalen Waddle is prepared for the stretch that actually matters. Because expectations around this Broncos team are different now. Fans aren't just hoping Denver can be competitive anymore. We've seen enough progress to start expecting something, and with expectations comes pressure. That's why every injury update feels bigger. Every practice matters more. Every decision Sean Payton makes is going to be examined more closely. We want to see Bo Nix take another step. We want to see what Waddle adds to this offense. We want this team healthy when that regular season gauntlet begins. And after everything Broncos Country went through last season, I think it's completely fair to say this. We do not want another season defined by wondering what this roster could have accomplished if its most important players had stayed on the field. So now, I want to hear from you guys. Would you play Jalen Waddle against the Packers on Friday if he practices fully all week? Or would you protect him and wait for the regular season? And if you were one of the fans affected by Monday's training camp closure, let me know that in the comments too. If you enjoyed talking Broncos football with me today, hit the like button. And remember, this channel is still new, and our first goal is 1,000 subscribers. I only want you subscribing if you genuinely believe in the future of this Broncos team, and you want to be part of this community while we build it from the beginning. I'm Andrew, and as always, I appreciate every single one of you who spends part of your day here talking Broncos football with me. Broncos Country, I'll see you in the next one.